Good evening, it's Monday the 7th of July and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Geopolitical alliance BRICS summit opens with expanded membership and strong calls for global institutional reform amid rising international tensions. Climate tragedy, Texas floods leave at least 80 dead, including children, as emergency services battle widespread devastation and ongoing rain threats. Compassion Initiative music therapy program brings comfort and healing to shelter animals recovering from trauma and stress in overcrowded facilities.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Akwil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. Leaders of the expanded BRICS bloc convened in Rio yesterday, urging reforms to global institutions and spotlighting multilateralism. As tensions with West simmer, the summit also drew sharp attention for absences, condemnation and Trump's latest tariff threats.
The BRICS summit officially opened yesterday in Rio de Janeiro with a strong push for reforms to Western-led institutions such as the United Nations Security Council and the International Monetary Fund. This year marks a significant milestone for the bloc, now expanded to include Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, bringing the total membership to 11. For the first time, Indonesia is participating at the leaders' level, reflecting the bloc's ambition to serve as a powerful collective voice for the global south. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, hosting the summit, emphasized the urgency of reforming outdated global governance structures and called for BRICS to take a leading role in shaping a more equitable international order. Notably absent from the summit's leadership lineup were Chinese President Xi Jinping, who sent his premier in his place, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, who joined via video due to the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant against him. Despite these absences, BRICS nations presented a united front, particularly in condemning violence in Iran, Gaza and Kashmir, an implicit critique of US foreign and military policy. Lula, speaking during a session on strengthening multilateralism, economic financial affairs and artificial intelligence, reaffirmed the bloc's commitment to peaceful diplomacy and equitable tech development. He also advocated for stronger BRICS influence within the IMF, proposing an increase in the group's voting power from 18% to at least 25%, and praised the new development bank as a viable alternative to Western financial institutions. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump reignited global trade tensions by announcing via Truth Social that the US would begin issuing tariff letters to other nations starting today. He warned that any country aligning with what he labeled BRICS anti-American policies would face an additional 10% tariff, though he provided no specifics on what constituted such policies. The timing of Trump's statement, coinciding with the BRICS summit, appeared to underline his administration's continued skepticism of multilateral frameworks and signaled a potentially renewed era of protectionism. With over 30 nations expressing interest in joining BRICS as full members or partners, the group's growing influence is increasingly viewed as a geopolitical counterweight to traditional Western alliances like G7 and G20.
US President Donald Trump said that the letters detailing new tariff rates will be sent starting today, with the implementation set for the 1st of August. Countries like South Korea are ramping up diplomatic efforts ahead of key trade negotiations.
U.S. President Donald Trump has said he's ready to send out letters starting Monday, notifying countries of the tariff they'll have to pay.
We're going to be sending letters out on Monday having to do with the trade deals. It could be 12, maybe 15, and they'll be going out on Monday, and some will go out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and we've made deals also, so we're going to have a combination of letters, and some deals have been made.
Speaking to reporters on Sunday, Trump added that either a letter will be sent or a deal will be done by July 9th. Following Trump's comments, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick indicated a 3-week reprieve.
I think we'll have most countries.
Tariffs go into effect August 1st, but the president is setting the rates and the deals right now.
This comes after Trump's announcement of the tariff in April, which included a 10% base rate for most countries and additional rates, which in some cases went up to around 50%, although he later delayed the effective date for all, but the 10% tariff until July 9th. Meanwhile, National Security Advisor Ri Sung-rak is in Washington, D.C. for 3 days to discuss pending issues. On his way to the U.S. on Sunday, he told reporters that Seoul and Washington have been discussing issues related to trade and security.
As the current negotiation phase is becoming quite critical, I'm stepping up my involvement, which is why I'm visiting the United States.
He is expected to meet with his U.S. counterpart Marco Rubio. When asked about defense cost sharing, he indicated that a range of issues were open for discussion, implying that cost sharing could be on the agenda. The agenda is also expected to include coordination for a summit between President Lee Jae-myung and U.S. President Donald Trump.
The South Korean court will hold a hearing Wednesday to review a request to detain former President Yoon Suk-yeol. Special prosecutors accuse him of abuse of power and insurrection amid fears he could flee or tamper with witnesses.
A South Korean court will hold a hearing on Wednesday to review a request by special prosecutors to detain former President Yoon Suk-yeol. That is according to a court official on Monday. The special counsel team investigating Yoon's martial law declaration in December filed a request to detain him over alleged abuse of power and obstruction of justice. Yoon has been accused of using presidential guards to prevent his arrest in January. He was eventually taken into custody but released from jail after 52 days on technical grounds. Special prosecutors who began their investigation after Lee Jae-myung became president in June are pursuing more charges against Yoon. The former president is fighting the charges that include masterminding insurrection, which is punishable by death or life in prison. The detention warrant was requested due to concerns that Yoon might flee or interfere with witnesses, according to local media, citing a special prosecutor's request. Yoon and his lawyers have rejected the allegations against him.
South Korea has formally asked Washington to exempt it from upcoming U.S. port entry fees targeting Chinese-built vessels. Seoul argued the fees meant to counter Chinese shipping dominance could harm its strong trade ties with the United States.
The South Korean government has asked Washington to impose U.S. port entry fees on foreign-built car carriers from China and exclude South Korea. According to the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative on Sunday, South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy and the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries submitted an opinion containing their official position last week. The U.S. announced in April that it plans to implement new port entry fees on vessels, particularly those built or operated by Chinese entities, to help boost the U.S. shipbuilding industry and address concerns about China's dominance in global shipping. Seoul also called on Washington to exclude South Korea from paying a port entry fee, as it would run counter to the mutually beneficial trade relationship between Korea and the United States.
Tesla founder Elon Musk says he has launched a new political party following a split with US President Donald Trump over disagreements on the proposed One Big Beautiful Bill, marking a bold new turn in American political dynamics.
It's the bill that triggered the falling out between Elon Musk and President Donald Trump, the so-called Big Beautiful Tax Cuts and Spending Bill. Once it was narrowly voted and signed, Musk decided to go through with his announced plan to shake up U.S. politics and form the America Party. As explained by the world's richest man to his followers, when asked what led him to, quote, take swipes at Trump, Musk replied,
increasing the deficit from an already insane $2 trillion under Biden to $2.5 trillion, this will bankrupt the country.
The bill, which Donald Trump says will boost the U.S. economy and bring the production of key technologies back to the country, will massively increase debt. The Republican Party had long opposed raising the national debt. Elon Musk's goal with this announced party is to gain a limited number of seats to block specific legislation as early as the next midterm elections.
Given the razor-thin legislative margins, that would be enough to serve as the deciding vote on contentious laws.
Asked about Musk's opposition to the bill, Donald Trump implied that the billionaire was opposed to it for personal gain because the bill will cut incentives to buy electric vehicles, which one of Musk's companies, Tesla, manufactures.
Elon's very upset that the EV mandate is going to be terminated.
The U.S. president also threatened to deport Elon Musk, a naturalized U.S. citizen, out of the country.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu met US President Donald Trump today as indirect Israel-Hamas talks resume in Doha. Trump has expressed hope for Gaza's ceasefire and hostage deal to be reached within the week.
Clouds of heavy smoke covers Gazan skies Sunday as Israel sends a delegation to Qatar for talks on a possible hostage and ceasefire deal. Palestinians have been killed after an Israeli strike hit a residential building overnight in the Sheikh Radwan neighborhood. Under mounting pressure to end the war, the Israeli delegation is meeting Hamas officials in Doha as part of ongoing international efforts to broker a truce. The proposal reportedly includes a 60-day ceasefire, the release of Israeli living hostages, the handover of hostage bodies, and the release of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. This as Israel's Prime Minister is scheduled to sit down with US President Donald Trump in Washington Monday.
This is an opportunity to expand the circle of peace far beyond what we could have imagined before. We've already transformed the face of the Middle East beyond recognition and have the opportunity and ability to change it even more and bring a great future to the State of Israel, the people of Israel, and the entire Middle East.
Trump, before boarding Air Force One in New Jersey, told reporters he was confident of some deals coming to light.
I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. You know, we've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out. We think we'll have that done this week.
As Palestinians mourn those killed in Sunday's attacks, Hamas seeks guarantees that the truce would lead to a total end of the war, which started after Hamas-led attacks on Israel in 2023. Sources suggest what's proposed so far stops short of guaranteeing a permanent end to the war, but negotiations are expected to continue during a 60-day ceasefire if it's agreed to.
Poland plans to build border fences to curb illegal immigration, Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak announced today. The decision follows nationalist Karol Nawrocki's narrow presidential victory in June, sparking criticism that the move could deepen divisions and fuel anti-migrant sentiment.
Poland is tightening its borders, with 52 temporary checkpoints now active along its German border and 13 on Lithuania's. A response Poland calls essential for migration control.
We do not agree. We fight against illegal migration. I think that there's no difference in Polish public opinion here. Illegal migration is simply a crime. It is a hybrid tool of Belarus and Russia against Poland.
Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced the decision Tuesday after a government meeting with the Polish border guard. As Poland, Germany and Lithuania are part of the Schengen area, border controls between them can only be carried out in exceptional circumstances. Typically, there is a free movement policy allowing people to cross borders within the zone. However, Schengen countries may introduce border controls in situations they consider to be an emergency. But the move has upset some neighbours. On the eve of Poland's border checks, Lithuania warned relations could sour. Its president emphasized that illegal migration through his country was minimal. His German counterpart hoped that the nations could work together for a more positive result.
We are negotiating with Poland on how this situation can be resolved. I hope that this will not lead to a long-lasting dispute between Poland and Germany.
Debate over migration in Poland has turned increasingly heated in recent weeks, with far-right activists organising patrols along certain borders.
Greece's Coast Guard says over 430 migrants have been rescued over the southern island of Gavdos and Crete since Friday. The surge in arrivals, mostly from Libya, comes amid a rising tide of migration from the Middle East and North Africa.
The Greek Coast Guard reported yesterday that it had rescued more than 430 migrants from 5 separate maritime incidents off the southern islands of Gavdos and Crete since Friday. In the largest operation, migrants were spotted approximately 25 nautical miles off Gavdosh, Greece's southernmost island. They were safely transferred to the port of Agia Galini, located on Crete's southern coast, and were then moved by bus to a designated facility. These rescues reflect growing pressure on Greece's maritime borders amid renewed migration flows across the central Mediterranean. In a separate development the same day, the European Union's border agency Frontex rescued an additional 96 migrants found aboard 2 boats drifting off Crete. According to Greek authorities, the rescued individuals are currently being transferred to Crete for further processing. The operations are part of intensified border control efforts by both Greek and EU forces aimed at preventing maritime tragedies while ensuring the humane treatment of those fleeing conflict and economic hardship. Greek officials said that all rescued individuals received immediate medical assessments and humanitarian assistance. Authorities attribute the recent spike in sea arrivals to increased migration from northeastern Libya, a region frequently used as a departure point for those attempting to reach Europe. The migrants mainly hail from countries in the Middle East and North Africa, including war-torn Sudan, Egypt, and Bangladesh. The instability in Libya and ongoing crises in source countries continue to fuel dangerous sea journeys, with migrants often traveling in overcrowded and unseaworthy vessels. Greek officials have called on the EU to strengthen joint operations and support frontline countries dealing with rising migration pressures.
In Texas, the death toll from catastrophic floods has risen to over 80. As dramatic new footage captures the storm's destructive power, emergency crews continue search and recovery efforts amid widespread damage.
Authorities on Sunday said the rising death toll following flash floods in central Texas now included more than 20 children. It came as rescuers continued a frantic search for girls missing from a summer camp. At a news conference on Saturday evening, Kerrville City Manager Dalton Rice said he could not say how many people were missing beyond the girls from Camp Mystic.
We will not put a number on the other side because we just don't know. Campers are coming in for 4th of July weekend. People are camping along the riverbank. There's a number that we just don't know yet. We are just going to continue until we find everything else.
The disaster unfolded rapidly on Friday morning after a sudden storm dumped up to 15 inches of rain in an area around the Guadalupe River, about 85 miles northwest of San Antonio. That's half of the total the region sees in a typical year.
Something I'd never seen before.
Tanya Fucci, who was in the area visiting her grandmother, said flood warnings came late.
We got the warnings on our phones hours later. The destruction had already been done before the warnings came out.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the National Weather Service's moderate flood watch issued on Thursday had not been accurate. She said the Trump administration was working to upgrade the system. But its steep cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which oversees the National Weather Service, may be hitting the country's ability to predict the weather. That's according to former NOAA Director Rick Spinrad, who said many weather officers were understaffed after thousands of jobs were axed. Spinrad said he did not know if that factored into the situation in Texas, but that it would inevitably degrade the agency's forecasting capabilities. President Donald Trump has also previously outlined plans to scale back the federal government's role in responding to natural disasters, leaving states to shoulder more of the burden themselves. On Sunday, Trump signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County.
More world news on the other side, just after a short commercial break. Welcome back. In California, 12-year-old Yuvi is using a power of music to comfort rescue animals. His unique mission blends compassion and creativity, offering smooth melodies to help shelter pets heal from trauma and find calm in stressful environments. Take a look.
12-year-old Yuvi Agarwal loves music, playing the piano since he was 4. He also loves animals, and after noticing how his music helped calm his restless golden doodle Bozo, he had an idea. Could pets in shelters benefit too? So a couple of years ago, he created a non-profit organization called Wild Tunes with help from his parents.
We get volunteers to come and play an instrument or sing for them, and it helps calm them down.
So far, he's recruited about 100 volunteer musicians and singers to perform at 9 shelters in Houston, New Jersey, and Denver. Volunteer Sarah McDonough plays the flute.
So I think it's very important to give them something different than what they're used to in their little tiny cages and makes them more adoptable.
Watch how listening to live music affected these animals at Fort Bend Animal Shelter. After just a few minutes of playing, they went from excited to more relaxed. Witnessing firsthand the power of music to comfort, UV now hopes to take wild tunes nationwide.
In Rhode Island, the town of Bristol proudly celebrated 240 years of the 4th of July festivities, marking the oldest continuous Independence Day celebration in the United States. This year's milestone event drew thousands, honoring a tradition that began in 1785.
In Bristol, Rhode Island, 2025 is the new 1785.
This is Americana right here.
This is my country.
That's because the 4th of July is this town's time to shine.
I love the 4th of July! Happy 4th! Happy birthday, America!
For 240 years, Bristol has kept the party going every year, making it the oldest continuous July 4th celebration in the country.
This is our Christmas. We start preparation 2 days after the parade, and it takes us all year.
During the Revolutionary War, the British raided these streets. But now, people line them every year to celebrate what America means to them.
We have our freedom. That's what it means to me.
And this enduring tradition.
It's been around 240 years. It's part of the Bristol culture, the Bristol community, and people from all over the country come to this parade.
Even with visitors from near and far, sea to shining sea, this parade's biggest star is the hometown crowd.
I've been coming to this parade my whole life, 35 plus years.
It's been a family tradition. We have not missed a single parade.
It was something that I grew up with. It's just very special. There's nothing I can say about it that doesn't bring me just a little bit of emotion, you know? It's nice.
A small town with big energy and a powerful message. Let freedom ring and celebrate America the Beautiful on the 4th and every day of the year.
Patriotism is very, very strong here in this community. It's something that you feel every day of the year, and it's kind of what we do.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Akwel Qureshi, and we'll leave you tonight with the visuals of Squid Game's fans competing in Jakarta Challenge. Also, don't forget to send in your feedback through our email on feedback.8024english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp line on 076 805 7933. On the other side, we've got Prasansa Gunavardhana, who will be joining you next with Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching. Good night.